hoping for no interruptions today from the doggies. Posty, are you stable? Probably not. Hello everyone, I'm sorry that I'm in my scrubs today, but I'm not feeling 100%. But I thought I would polish myself up a little bit and stay in my scruffs so that I could do this video for you today, because it is without doubt the question I get asked the most. It is the most requested video ever, and I don't get video requests yet. I have already filmed this video before, but I didn't like the vibe that I was giving off. I went into a bit of a robot mode and just started talking really drab and really monotone, and I thought, it's boring me, let alone you guys. So I also remember getting a really dry throat. I mean, I filmed this video like months ago. Not really, it was like last month, maybe the month before, I don't know. But I remember getting a really sore throat, so I have a drink and I have some snacks because this could be a long video. So without whittling on too much, let's start the video. Doesn't everything look a lot more fresh around here since having these beautiful lights? I think so. So the question I get asked the most is, how do I open an online shop to sell my artwork? Before I even get into this, I am not an expert, I'm not a guru. I'm just going to be talking of my own experiences and trying to give you guys some experience tips and tricks, I guess, with opening an online shop. I honestly am not an expert, so this is just what's happened to me over the past few months. I've had an online shop since 2012, but it's only been since 2015 that I first started Llama Talks, which was the name of my shop before I rebranded 2 months ago to Pastel Elixir. My first shop, let's take you back to 2012, and that's why my Etsy shop will say open since 2012, because I just changed the name of my shop. I used to make jewellery, and I used to sell those under the name Alice in Wonderland. They were all like whimsical pieces, and I really enjoyed making jewellery. I absolutely loved it. I used to spend so much of my own money on beads and charms and chains and pendants, everything you could possibly imagine. I'm quite good with my fingers. I used to love it, but unfortunately I was putting all this time into making bracelets in particular, and necklaces and earrings, and just wasn't really selling very much. And looking back, I did not market my shop that well at all. I got a few sales, but I mainly sold most of my jewellery at a local tea room, which I still sell all of my cards and illustrations and giftware up at the tea room, so I do still sell there. However, I kind of gave up on that shop and left it there. I closed the shop down, but I still, if you open an Etsy account, you still have your account details on there. And the thing with Etsy is, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but say, let's assume you've opened a shop called Unicorn Poo. If you decide that you no longer want that shop, that name will always be registered to your account no matter what. So you can change the name. I think you can change the name like twice before Etsy are like, no more. Which is why I've had a bit of an issue myself recently. But say you want to change your name to Pastel Skies or something like that, you can change your name to Pastel Skies, and Etsy should let you do that. However, Unicorn Poo will still be a name registered to your account, so nobody else in the entire world can use Unicorn Poo as a name. It can never be used again because you've already used it. Does that make sense? So I changed my name to Llama Talks, and this was on the way back from a holiday in Cornwall that James and I had. It was one of our first holidays together, and I was like driving all the way home feeling pretty miserable, post-holiday blues. I was miserable in my job still at the time, and I was like, I really want to sell my illustration work. It was my dream to be an illustrator. I didn't know where to start. James knew that I'd had my jewellery shop because he'd bought a few pieces for like friends and stuff before, so we were friends at school. If you want to know more about how I met James, then I'll do another video on that some other time. But he was like, why don't you reopen your Etsy shop? And I was like, nah, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. But we spoke about it and came up with the ridiculous name Llama Talks. It was literally the only name we could think of, and that's why I used it. And when I got home, I started making plans to open my own Etsy shop again. The thing with selling online is there are a few different options, but I've looked into most of them, I feel, and I think Etsy is the simplest and the most accessible. No matter what level you are within the online selling world, Etsy is a really good one to start out with. Even if you progress or expand into things like Folksy or Amazon Marketplace, or if you're lucky enough to get onto Not on the High Street. I think Not on the High Street are like the snobs of the online shop world. So with Etsy, anyone can sell on there as long as it's like handmade or vintage. You get get the idea. But with Not on the High Street, even if you are handmade, you have to match their style. They are looking for a certain image from your shop that fits in with the rest of their like branding and the rest. There's a certain feel to Not on the High Street. If you go on their website, it's very like clean cut and posh. Some people just aren't made for Not on the High Street, and I've been declined twice. With some shops you have to apply for a shop. With Etsy I don't believe you do, and you can just go straight in there, get your shop name and everything's sorted out, and it's pretty easy to set up. This is not sponsored, by the way, because we all know that I've had my fair share of problems with Etsy over the years, but I keep going back to Etsy. Like, whether I like it or not, Etsy has been the shop where I've sold the most stuff. I've got a notebook and my fluffy pen here because I've got some points that I thought would be really valuable to go through with you guys. I think we've established Etsy would be my recommendation to, if you want to start an online shop, Etsy is one of the best places to do so. Etsy also provide forums, and I don't know if other online platforms offer this, but forums are a really good place to go. If you have any questions or concerns or queries or whatever, you can go to the forums and you can interact with other sellers from all over the world. So it doesn't matter where they are. If they have an Etsy shop, they'll probably be on there. You can promote your stuff on there. There's different sections of the forum, so if you just want to chat to other makers, you can. If you've got a question, you would post that in the questions section. If you want to promote, you would go there, etc. Etsy's order forms are also really simple as well, because the last thing you want, I think, is when you get an order, you don't want to get confused by anything. Etsy order forms, when you get an order that comes through, it's really clear, really easy to read. So I've yet to make a mistake with one of my orders because Etsy's layout is just so clear and so easy to understand. So let's move on to some success tips. This is something that I think I failed miserably at when I was Alice in Wonderland on Etsy, is I didn't market my stuff right, and that doesn't just mean sharing on social media. That is just the tip of the iceberg, sharing on social media. If you're going to use Etsy, there are certain things that you should probably go and follow if you want people to find your shop. The first thing is have a descriptive title. So whatever you're selling, make it descriptive, try and use up all the characters that you're given. Make it descriptive, make it fun and exciting. If you were shopping for that product, would it draw you in? But also don't make it cluttered. Use your upper and lower case. Don't make it too in your face, and don't make it look clumsy by just using lowercase. Just make it look professional. And then using that title that you've created for your piece, your item that you want to sell, there is also a tag section on your Etsy listing page where you basically have 13 options that you can use. Again, use them all, and they are again descriptive words or phrases or chunks of words from that title that describe your item that people will be using in the search bar. The tag section is very, very difficult to, it's really hard to get onto the front page. So when people search for body scrub, for example, it's really difficult to get your item onto the front page of the search results. So don't be disheartened if you've tagged all of your things and you've tagged your product and it's still not coming up on the first page. Don't worry too much about that. That's something you can work on, but it's really difficult to get onto the first page of the search results, so don't worry too much. Also, something that's put me off in the past, if I've gone to an Etsy shop, because I try and do a lot of my birthday gifts or Christmas gifts, I try and shop on Etsy a lot, is if I'm looking at something and there's hardly anything in the description box, I'm a bit like, it puts me off sometimes. It really does put me off. If there's not enough information on there, if I'm looking for a print or something, I want to know what size the print is, what paper you've made it out of, what inks you've used, what are the quality of the inks, will it come in a slip bag with a backing board, how will you post it. Just be informative and try and give the buyer as much information as possible, anything that you could possibly think of that might help the buyer, encourage them along a little bit. Good photos is something that is probably one of the #1 things that you could do right with Etsy. If you have poor photos, chances are people aren't even going to look at your listing. So work on your photos. You don't even need fancy lighting. Natural lighting is one of the best things that you can use for taking photo products. I've also got a makeshift studio box. I'm going to show you that now, just so I don't say, watch my other video to learn how to make one, because we all know how annoying that is. I made this box, and it doesn't look like very much, but I made this box out of Custard's Tales delivery. So you just need a box, and obviously my box is quite small because everything I photograph is like badges or greetings cards or notebooks or bookmarks, but my box is quite small, but you could make it whatever size you want, and I've just lined it with plain paper, plain white paper. The side bits are just white tissue paper so that a bit of light gets through. So if you do have lights, you can just use lamps, and the effect of the tissue paper or greaseproof paper you could use will like diffuse it so it doesn't look so yellow. So that's what the tissue paper's for. But you can just use this outside as well. I find that the white paper reflects really nicely and you get a nice white background. You can also, top tip for you, go to the DIY shops, you know, where they sell wallpaper and stuff. Take yourself a pretty decent sized sample, and you can get a nice big sample. You can just rip it off and walk away with it. You can use those as backdrops, so you don't need to buy expensive backdrops. Just get down to the hardware stores and just rip off a few wallpaper samples. I know so many people that do this. Even my mum does this for her DIY projects. It's a great way to save money. It's a little bit cheeky, but it's a great way to save money and make your photos look really awesome. But don't worry too much about having expensive cameras or lighting. You can just take photos with your phone. Just take your items outside into your garden or something, and you can start making and taking really nice photos. You don't even need expensive editing software. An app that I can really recommend to you guys is called Avery, and it has so many different tools. So this is a photo that I was editing this morning for Instagram. There's an enhancement tool, an effects tool, there's crop. You can adjust all of the brightness, exposures, the contrast, the saturation, everything. You can even transform it or add text or draw on it, sharpness, blur, everything is on this app. So it's like a miniature, less sophisticated version of Photoshop, but it is so handy. Something else I will suggest is know about postage and how much to charge. Make sure it's fair for both you and the buyer, so don't completely rip the buyer off, but also don't cut yourself short. So if you need to travel to get to your post office, or if you need to get on a bus to get to your post office, you kind of need to incorporate the cost of that travel into the cost of your postage. Some buyers don't understand this, and sometimes buyers have messaged me before saying a stamp costs this much, you're charging this much, and even though it's literally a matter of pence that they are arguing over, you don't need to charge people extra pounds and stuff, just a few pence. They also don't understand that packaging cost comes into postage and packaging. So if you're posting in mail bags or bubble wrap or tissue paper, if you're adding a nice sticker or something, everything comes into the shipping and postage costs. Obviously, I think that's all down to you. You could add the packaging cost into the cost of the item if you like, but I just add it into my shipping costs. It just, in my head, makes it a bit easier. But again, with postage, know your rights. So if something goes missing in the post, know your rights. So here in the UK, I would have to research the rights that I have to sell across the world if something goes missing, if something is delayed in the post. Just have a bit of a policy section, and also Etsy's policy sections are really easy to fill out. If you need some help, just Google it. There's lots of information on Etsy as well as to what to add to your policy section. But if something goes missing in the post, for example, you need to know how to respond to your buyer in a professional manner. And you need to know like the information is correct, so make sure you do your research around postage. Something I didn't do to start off with was stay really organised, and this is like back with Alice in Wonderland. I never kept track of anything that I bought or sold, any expenses or any bills or anything, because it was literally just a hobby and I made a couple of £10 notes here and there. It wasn't really a business. But as soon as I started Llama Talks, I had an Excel spreadsheet that I was doing, and I fill it out all the time. You probably don't need to be as precise as I am, but I try and do my accounts every Friday. But you don't need to do it that often. Some people find it easy to do it monthly, some people do it every 6 months. But for me personally, I feel so much more organised if I do little and often. It just helps me feel a lot more organised. But keep track of everything, so everything you buy for your business, your receipts, everything you spend, any bills, just keep track of everything. Have a spreadsheet, because you will need to do your tax return at the end of the year if you open an online shop and you are a business. Obviously, I'm just speaking for UK sellers here because I'm not sure about other countries, but if you're stuck with anything to do with tax, do ring HMRC, because they are so helpful, and every experience I've ever had with ringing them has been really friendly and positive. They've helped me out every single time. Like, I've always left a phone conversation with them feeling much more confident and at ease. So if you're worried about tax and stuff, they can explain it way better than I ever could, so do get in touch with them. You should also have a policy around sort of returning items, so if it wasn't what the buyer thought it would be, or if it's faulty or something, have a policy around that, like what actions do you take to correct the situation. And price fairly. I think this is something that artists especially struggle with. It's pricing fairly their artwork or gift wares or whatever it is you sell. I see somewhere knitwear on Etsy or whatever, and they're charging £10, right, for a woolly hat, and I think, yeah, okay, £10 for a woolly hat is quite reasonable, but you've spent hours knitting this woolly hat, you've made it by hand. People don't charge enough for the craftsmanship that's going into your item. Yeah, you could get it down at Primark for £2, but these people are making their items, so if you are going on to Etsy, do remember that 99.9% of the time they've probably handmade it themselves. So make sure you as a seller are pricing things fairly. This is something that I think every artist at some point has been guilty of, and even now I'm like, oh god, I've got an original piece of artwork that I really want to sell but nobody's going to buy it. The right people will buy it, or the people that really want it will pay for it. And that brings me quite nicely onto the fact that sometimes you may get the occasional email from a very snotty individual saying that your prices are too high or your postage is too high and to take it down. Don't let buyers push you around. I've had no end of messages, especially this year, from really like snotty people, nasty people. And I don't care if you're a blogger, because I am too. I don't care if you're a YouTuber. I don't care who you are. You do not go to an online shop, or anywhere for that matter, and ask for free stuff. Maybe if you were in Lush and you wanted to try a little sample of their hand cream before you go and spend 20 quid on a pot, because you know, we've probably all done that. You don't go to a gift shop or a supermarket or anywhere else. You don't go to Topshop and say, oh, can I have a free pair of jeans before I actually buy a pair to see if they're comfortable? You just don't do it. The amount of messages I get these days from people saying, I'm this person, can I have a freebie? I'll promote you, I'll give you exposure. I think online creators have had this excuse too much, like, oh, I'll offer you exposure. It's not enough, don't settle for it. Exposure, well, it's not going to get you anywhere. Exposure's great, but when they offer you exposure, from experience, you don't get any sales from it. You might get a couple more views, but nothing too astounding has come from it in my experience. One of the funniest messages I've ever gotten actually was from this mum, or it could have been a dad, I don't know, but the way it was messaged, it kind of gave me a vibe that it was a mother. But she said, can you send my daughter some stuff to review on her YouTube channel? She's got loads of subscribers and she's going to be the next Zoella. And I was like, alright then. So I went on her YouTube channel and she had like 30 subscribers. I don't want to make this channel sound small, by the way, because I only have a few subscribers myself, and I would never consider, I don't even like the word YouTuber. I don't like it. I don't go around to people and say I'm a YouTuber. It just feels weird. So I'm not trying to belittle this channel or anything, and she was just a child. But it's the way this mother was like, yeah, she's going to be the next Zoella. She's amazing. She's got loads of followers and subscribers. She could get you so many sales. And I was like, you can just press the spam button. On occasions I have messaged people back saying that's a really rude way to go about things. When I've been in a mood where I just can't, if I've had that many messages that week, sometimes I do crack and I'm like, can you please not message me again? But just remember to stay professional. That is important. You are representing your shop at the end of the day, and it's important to stay professional. I'm the next Zoella. Yeah. Aren't we all? That's really bitchy, Ellis. Stop it. Wow, this is getting hot in here. The only downside to these lights is that you get quite warm, and I'm in a jumper. I was cold earlier, and I'm not now. So yeah, I do get some ridiculous emails sometimes from people asking for free stuff. All you can do is either click delete or click the spam button and be done with it. It does annoy me a lot. It's probably the thing that annoys me the most with running an online shop. But other than that, running an online shop is great, and I do appreciate that it feels really scary to begin with. It feels like you're going to get into trouble, or you're going to do something wrong and the tax man's going to come after you. I can totally relate to that, because sometimes even now I'm like, ugh. But just keep track of everything, look after your receipts, have a filing system. I have some files up there on my Alex drawers that I use. Just keep everything organised with tabs and colour codes. You know how I like it. And don't forget, we all have to start out somewhere. When I lived at home, I had a desk in my mum's office right in the corner, and it was the tiniest room, and I had literally the smallest space. Then I moved out and I had a room, like I moved out and I had my own house on my own. I had a 2-bedroom house that I was renting. Wasted so much money. If you can avoid spending that much money on rent, please do. But I had a whole separate bedroom, and it was just my space. It was amazing. And then I got together with James and I moved into his flat, and that was a 1-bedroom and there was no space. Luckily, he really kindly bought me a desk, and we set up a desk in the living room, but again, that was all I had. And although I had more space at my house where I was living on my own, the rent was extortionate and the rent was cheaper to live with James. And because we decided that we'd wanted to save to buy a house one day together, we decided to move into his place because it was cheaper and would allow us to save more. But that's just proof that you can make it work no matter how big or small your space is. Just make sure you stay organised and keep everything together. You can make it work with even just a desk. A lot of people still do just a desk. I've worked really hard to eventually be able to buy my own house, and now I have a room again. Even though this room is tiny, as you guys have seen, it's not the biggest space in the world, but it's just an area where I get all my stuff done. Just create yourself a little corner in your flat or in your house. It doesn't have to be a huge space. So don't let that dishearten you if you think, oh, I haven't got a studio, I haven't got like a room dedicated to my job. Don't worry about that too much. Crikey. Anyway, I really hope I've touched on quite a few topics there to do with opening an Etsy shop in particular, but if there's anything else that I've missed or you would like to talk about more, please do leave me a comment down below and I will reply to you. And that also reminds me, if you do ever want to send me an email to talk about stuff personally or talk about stuff that I might not have mentioned in a video and you really want to talk about and don't want me to do a whole video on it, please do send me an email, and don't apologise for sending emails because I love speaking to all of you. Getting emails from you is the most amazing feeling in the world because you're taking the time out of your day to speak to me. So don't apologise ever for sending an email because I love replying to you. I love taking the time out of my day to speak to you, and I just love hearing from you in general. So please don't ever apologise if you want to talk sometime. I'm going to bounce because it's hot. Anyway guys, have an awesome day. Thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you all really, really soon. Bye!